or receives heads of state on official visits to our country. In this way, King Albert II and Queen Paola welcomed King Carl Gustaf XVI and Queen Sylvia of Sweden in May 2001. They thus returned the compliment to our sovereigns who visited Sweden 6 years earlier. This visit offered a reminder of the close links between the two royal families. Against this background, they share the memory of Queen Astrid, through whom the kings Carl Gustaf XVI and Albert II share a grandfather, King Oscar II of Sweden. With all the public events that the king attends, the nerves of the members of his security staff are often tested to the limit. They have to know the king's agenda in the greatest detail in order to guarantee his protection permanently throughout the territory of the kingdom. In order to take on the activities of his function, the king of course has the help of the entire government and administrative apparatus in the country. But it is also accepted that the king must be able to make free use of personal cooperation and material resources. In this spirit, the Constitution allocates the king a civil list, that is to say, not a salary, but an institutional budget that he has to use to pay all the people who work for him, to maintain the royal residences that are made available to him, to ensure the functioning of his services, and to cover personal, hospitality and representation expenses. For this purpose, the customary institution of the king's household was created. It includes his personal staff in 4 departments: the Department of the Grand Marshal, the King's Office, the Military Household, and the Civil List Department. The 4 heads of department work directly with the king. The Department of the Grand Marshal organizes the king's public activities, along with those of the Queen. The King's Office is more specifically responsible for political and administrative issues and liaison with the government and the political world. The Military Household informs and advises the King as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, especially on national and international security and defense matters. The Civil List Department undertakes the control and management of financial, human and material resources in the King's household. When you're a reporter at the palace, you don't get much rest. Every day, sacks full of letters have to be sorted and distributed to the king's various services. Each letter is read with great care, for everyone who has sent a letter to the king is guaranteed a reply. The palace is of course strictly guarded, and there's no question of entering on the sly to take a look around. You have to show you're acceptable and that you've received a genuine invitation. For a long time now, the Belgian sovereigns have no longer lived in the palace in Brussels, but at the domain of Laken. Brussels is reserved for audiences and receptions. The palace in Brussels is also the residence of foreign heads of state who are on official visits. Here, the king is receiving the President of Sri Lanka, formerly Ceylon, Her Excellency Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, on visit to Belgium and the European Union. At the beginning of each new year, the royal palace is the scene of great receptions, where the most notable personalities of the time are invited. The reception here is in honor of the members of NATO and SHAPE, where we can see the King speaking with the 10th Secretary General of NATO and President of the North Atlantic Council, Lord Robertson of Port Ellen. Prestigious events are held at the palace in Brussels virtually all the time. The Prime Minister, Guy Verhofstadt, has come here to attend the 11th presentation of the International King Boudoir Prize for Development, worth 150,000 euros, which has been awarded every other year since 1980.
I think this is
This prize is aimed at rewarding the action of people or organizations who make a significant contribution to development of countries in the South or to solidarity between industrialized and developing countries. The prize in 2001 was awarded in the presence of the royal family and the Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, to the Costa Rican non-governmental organization Fundecor, which works for the protection of tropical forests. At the end of 1975, on the eve of the 25th anniversary of the coronation of King Boudoir, private circles and representatives of public opinion asked the king to suggest the form of the gift that the nation wished to offer him. Thus, the King Boudoir Foundation was born. It is neither a public service nor an extension of the royal palace.
Negligence and greed. And I would like to thank Their Majesties King Albert II and Queen Paola, who have invited me to this moving ceremony. Let me also pay tribute to the King Boudoir Foundation for all it does to improve the lives of people around the world.
The King Boudoir Foundation is an independent institution which aims to undertake all initiatives which tend to improve the living conditions of the population, taking into account economic, social, scientific, and cultural factors. The Foundation aims to take up the issues and challenges of society by stimulating solidarity and generosity, by acting as a catalyst for sustainable change. Every year, the highest authorities in the country, which are conventionally known as the organized bodies, come to present their good wishes to the royal family. We can make out Cardinal Daniels, the Primate of Belgium, Herman de Croo, President of the Chamber, and Armand de Decker, President of the Senate, speaking quite naturally with the sovereigns. This ceremony provides an opportunity for the king to emphasize his major preoccupations of the moment in a speech. On this occasion, Albert II drew attention to an issue which had previously touched his brother, King Boudoir, that of people trafficking. These various ceremonies, which regularly take place in the royal palace, require expertise, discretion and tact on the part of personnel. These are essential qualities when one works at the service of the king. Prince Philippe, the eldest son of King Albert II and Queen Paula, is the first in the order of succession to the throne, and as such he holds the title of Duke of Brabant. Shortly after the accession to the throne of King Albert II, the prince accepted the honorary chairmanship of the board of directors of the Belgian Office of Foreign Trade. Since 1997, he has been the honorary president of the Federal Council for Sustainable Development. In the light of the prince's increased activities, Prince Philippe's household was created in 1992. This household, which is now known as the Dukes of Brabant's household, includes the staff and services which the prince has at his disposal in order to undertake his many activities. The prince receives his own allowances. In the field of politics, the king's activity is not reflected in the exercising of his own personal power, but through what can be called a high office of influence. The long-term existence of this function and the continuity of the dynasty call on him quite naturally to situate himself in this perspective, whereas by contrast, the people with whom he is in contact often have shorter-term priorities. The king's activity is reflected through this dialogue with everyone involved in the political decision. The importance and impact of the king's political activity vary according to circumstances and the very pace of public life, but this activity is and has to be constant. On the 21st of July, 1831, the first king of the Belgians, Leopold I, pledged to observe the constitution and laws of the Belgian people, to maintain national independence and the integrity of the territory. 5 kings after him have reiterated this oath, and the 21st of July has become a national holiday in Belgium. On this occasion, a military parade takes place every year in front of the royal palace.
Children, cry!
Through the numerous events which take place, each more prestigious than the last, the palace in Brussels is far from being a museum. It is the setting for the memory of a people and the history of its royal family. It is the privileged witness of the high points that punctuate the life of the nation. Being invited here is always an honor and a joy for every Belgian. But this palace has also played host to many scientists, men of letters and politicians from foreign countries, for whom the importance of Belgium and its king in the alliance of nations is not devoid of sagacity. As a head of state, it is part of the spirit of the king's constitutional role to ensure that in all areas there is unity among Belgians and constancy in all that can guarantee the existence of the kingdom. The monarchy is the best guarantor of our freedoms and rights. As long as the king is there and exercises his function in a constitutional context, there will be no place in this country for an authoritarian regime. This view was recently expressed by a British commentator with regard to the British monarchy, which is comparable to our own in this respect. It is just as important for what it prevents as for what it accomplishes.